The house was still that evening, the kind of stillness that comes after a long day. Emma sat on the couch with her son Daniel, both of them wrapped in a blanket that stretched across their laps. A bowl of popcorn sat between them, half forgotten as the bright glow of the television filled the room. The sound of a Netflix show hummed in the background, giving the air a rhythm of calm. It wasn't an extraordinary night. In fact, it was the sort of quiet evening they often shared. And yet, Emma felt something different about it, though she couldn't place why. Daniel had been busy with his college work all week, and Emma with her office tasks. Their lives ran in different directions now, but moments like these simple, ordinary evenings brought them back together. Emma glanced at him out of the corner of her eye. He was no longer the little boy she used to tuck into bed. His face had matured, his voice deeper, his presence stronger. Sometimes she had to remind herself he was already a young man. She leaned back against the couch cushion, letting out a soft sigh. She remembered the days when laughter had filled this room. Back when her husband was still there, when family dinners stretched late into the night. But those days had ended years ago when Mark left. Since then, it had been just her and Daniel. They had created their own routines, their own version of home, and over time, their bond had grown stronger than most. Emma had given everything to make sure her son never felt the emptiness she sometimes carried. The show flickered on. Actors speaking words neither of them truly listened to. Emma noticed how Daniel occasionally smiled at something small, like the way the popcorn spilled from her hand, or how the blanket slipped off her shoulder. It made her chest tighten with a mixture of pride and nostalgia. She thought about how quickly the years had gone. One day she was teaching him to ride a bike. The next she was watching him apply to universities. Time had moved like a train she couldn't stop. And now here he was, taller, older, and far from the child she once knew. Emma didn't say any of this out loud. Instead, she kept her eyes on the television, afraid to disturb the fragile peace of the evening. But her mind wandered, weaving between memory and the present moment. She thought of how many times Daniel had been the one to bring laughter back into her life. How his presence filled the house in a way that nothing else could. He had always been her reason to keep going, her anchor when days felt heavy. Then Daniel shifted beside her. His movement was small, but Emma felt it. He straightened slightly, his hand brushing the blanket as if gathering courage. She sensed a quiet seriousness in him, the kind of energy that comes before important words. She turned her head, expecting him to ask something simpler question about the show or maybe about dinner tomorrow. But when their eyes met, she saw something different. His gaze held a weight, steady and thoughtful. Like he had been carrying it for a long time. "Mom," Daniel said quietly. His voice lower than usual. Emma blinked, surprised by the sudden tone. "Yes?" she asked, her heart skipping for reasons she couldn't explain. He hesitated. His lips parted, then pressed together again. For a moment she thought he might change his mind. But then he leaned closer, his eyes never leaving hers. "There's something I've been meaning to tell you." The words landed between them, heavier than the silence that followed. Emma felt the air shift. She set the popcorn bowl aside, her hand brushing against the couch fabric as though to ground herself. She didn't know why, but she felt her pulse quicken, a faint tremor running through her chest. "What is it, Daniel?" she asked gently. He took in a slow breath, his shoulders rising and falling as if he was preparing himself. Emma noticed the way his jaw tightened, the way his hands curled slightly in his lap. Whatever it wasn't small. It wasn't ordinary. And in that moment, Emma understood before he even spoke that whatever he was about to say would not only matter, but would change something between them. The television kept playing, the characters on screen laughing at some forgotten joke. But neither Emma nor Daniel heard it anymore. The room had grown heavy with expectation. Emma's heart drummed against her ribs as she waited, her eyes fixed on her son, her breath caught in her throat. Then Daniel looked at her with a seriousness she had never seen before. His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed the storm within him. "Mom," he said softly, almost like a confession, "I don't know how to hold this inside anymore." Emma's hand tightened on the blanket, her body frozen. She had no idea what was coming, but she knew one thing: life would not be the same after tonight. The moment hung heavy. Emma's chest rose and fell quickly as she waited for Daniel to continue. His eyes stayed on her, sharp and filled with something she couldn't quite read. The Netflix show flickered on in the background, but the story on the screen no longer mattered. Their living room, once a place of comfort, now felt like the stage for a turning point Emma had not seen coming. Daniel rubbed his palms together, his movements restless. He looked down for a second, then back at her. His jaw tightened, as if holding back the words had become unbearable. "I've been carrying something inside me," he said slowly, "and I don't know how to keep hiding it anymore." Emma's hands tightened around the blanket. She leaned forward, her voice gentle but trembling. "Daniel, whatever it is, you can tell me. You don't have to be afraid." He drew in a deep breath, his chest rising. "That's just it, Mom. I am afraid." "Afraid because this isn't the kind of thing a son should say to his mother?" Emma froze. Her heart skipped at his words. "Daniel," she whispered, but he didn't stop. "I don't see you the way I'm supposed to," he said firmly, his voice carrying both pain and certainty. "You're not just my mom to me. You're everything. You've always been the one constant in my life, the person who understands me when no one else does. You've been my support, my strength. But it's more than that. I feel something I don't know how to name, something I know I'm not supposed to feel." The room seemed to shrink around them. Emma's breath caught in her throat as his words settled deep into her chest. She wanted to interrupt, to stop him, but her voice wouldn't come. All she could do was listen. Daniel leaned forward, his eyes pleading with hers. "I've tried to ignore it. I've told myself it's wrong, that I should bury it and never speak of it. But every day it grows stronger. When you smile, when you sit next to me, when you simply walk into the room, I can't hide from it anymore. I need you to know the truth, even if it ruins everything between us." Emma's heart pounded so hard it hurt. She stared at him, torn between disbelief and an aching recognition. Deep down, she had always known their bond was unusual, more intense than most. She had explained it away as closeness, as the result of years of being just the two of them. But hearing him speak it out loud forced her to face the reality she had pushed aside. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Do you realize what you're saying?" "I do," he answered quickly. "And I know how it sounds. But I can't keep living like this, pretending nothing's there. I'm not asking for anything, I just needed you to know." I couldn't keep it inside any longer. Emma felt her throat tighten. Her eyes burned as tears threatened to spill. She had always prided herself on being strong for him, always keeping her emotions under control. But now, hearing his confession, her walls began to crumble. She looked at him not as the little boy she had once rocked to sleep, but as the man sitting before her. Vulnerable and brave in his honesty, the silence stretched between them. Emma's thoughts spun wildly. Part of her wanted to tell him to forget it, to push it away, to go back to how things were. But another part of Hertha, part she had buried for years, recognized the same feeling she had been too afraid to admit even to herself. She felt it in the way her chest ached, in the way her hand trembled when she reached for his. "Daniel," she said softly, her voice shaking, "this is dangerous. These feelings, they're not what the world would ever accept." His eyes darkened, filled with pain. "So you feel it too," he whispered, as though confirming his deepest fear and hope at the same time. Emma pulled her hand back, her emotions twisting into knots. "I don't know what I feel," she said quickly. "All I know is you're my son, and I love you more than anything in this world. But love is supposed to have boundaries. And right now, I don't even know where ours are anymore." Daniel lowered his head, his voice breaking. "I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't mean to put this on you. I just couldn't keep carrying it alone. If you tell me to forget it, I will. But please don't tell me you don't understand, because I see it in your eyes. You feel something too." Emma's lips trembled. Her heart screamed to deny it, but her silence said more than words could. She felt exposed, fragile, like he had read her most hidden thoughts. She wanted to run, yet she couldn't move. Daniel leaned closer, his voice filled with desperation. "If you tell me you don't feel the same, I'll let it go. I'll never bring it up again. But if you do, if there's even a small part of you that understands, Then please don't leave me standing here in the dark. Emma's tears finally spilled over. She looked at her son, her child, her confidant. The one who had grown into a man before her eyes, and she knew there was no easy answer. She couldn't deny the bond they shared, couldn't deny the emotions his words had awakened. But she also knew the danger of acknowledging it. Her voice cracked when she finally spoke. Emma sat frozen, her hands pressed tightly together, as if holding them still could stop the rush of emotions inside her. Daniel's words echoed in her ears, words that had cracked open something she had spent years keeping locked away. The television still played in the corner, but it was nothing more than a faint hum. The only sound she truly heard was her son's breathing, uneven and heavy, matching the storm inside her own chest. Daniel stood now, pacing the living room. His movements were restless, his shoulders tense, his hands dragging through his hair again and again. "I knew this would scare you," he said finally, his voice raw. "I knew it would feel wrong, but I had to say it. Pretending every day was destroying me." Emma rose slowly, her knees trembling. She watched him with a mixture of fear and sorrow, but also something deeper she refused to name. "Daniel," she said softly, "you don't understand what you've done. You've changed everything. Once words are spoken, they can't be taken back." He turned sharply, his eyes burning. "I don't want to take them back," he replied. "I've been silent for too long. Every time I looked at you and swallowed my feelings, it felt like I was losing a piece of myself. I can't live that way anymore." Emma's throat tightened. She wanted to tell him to stop, to end this before it went further. But she couldn't ignore the truth she felt rising inside her. His words had awakened memories. She had long buried the times. She had caught herself staring at him too long. The warmth in her chest when he smiled, the comfort she drew from his presence on lonely nights. She had told herself it was only the bond of a mother and her son. But deep down, she had always known it was more complicated. She clasped her hands together, trying to find strength. "You're asking me to admit something that terrifies me," she whispered. "If I even allow myself to feel what you feel, we can never go back. Do you understand that? Nothing will ever be the same." Daniel stepped closer, his eyes fixed on hers, filled with both fear and longing. "I know," he said, "but I'd rather face the truth than live a lie. I can't stand the thought of baring my heart just to keep things simple. Mom, I can't." Her tears blurred her vision. She looked at him, at the man standing where a boy once stood, and her heart twisted painfully. She wanted to protect him, to protect both of them from the consequences of this moment. But she also knew he was right, pretending would only break them in different ways. "Daniel," she said, her voice breaking, "you don't realize how hard this is for me. I've spent years telling myself our closeness was nothing unusual, that it was just love between a mother and her son. But hearing you say it out loud, it makes me face the truth I've been afraid to admit." Daniel's expression softened. And for the first time since he began, she saw a flicker of hope in his eyes. "Then you do feel it," he whispered. Emma closed her eyes, her tears spilling freely. "I don't know what I feel," she said, though even as the words left her lips, she knew they weren't true. She knew exactly what she felt. She was just too afraid to give it shape. Daniel moved closer still, until there were only inches between them. His presence filled the air, strong and overwhelming, yet gentle in its own way. "I don't want to hurt you," he said quietly. "If you tell me to stop, I will. But don't lie to me. Don't tell me you feel nothing, because I see it in your eyes every time you look at me." Emma's chest heaved. Her hands shook as she lifted them slightly, almost touching him, but pulling back at the last second. "You're my son," she whispered, her voice almost pleading with herself. "You're the one person I'm supposed to protect from everything, even from this." He reached for her hand then, his fingers brushing hers with a hesitation that spoke louder than any words. She felt the warmth of his skin, the weight of his touch, and she didn't pull away. Instead, she stood there trembling, caught between fear and surrender. "I don't want protection from you," he said, his voice low and steady. "I just want the truth, even if it's only for this moment, even if nothing ever comes of it." Emma stared at their hands, at the way his fingers curled gently around hers. 1,000 thoughts raced through her mind: what people would say, how the world would never understand, how dangerous this path was. And yet, none of it mattered in that moment. The only thing that mattered was the man standing in front of her. The bond that tied them together in ways no one else could see. Her heart pounded as she finally met his eyes again. "You're asking me to cross a line I never thought I'd face," she said shakily. "And once it's crossed, it can't be undone." Daniel's grip on her hand tightened slightly. "Then don't think about the line. Think about us. Think about what's real right here, right now." Emma's tears fell silently as she searched his face. She saw no malice, no selfishness, only love, raw and unguarded. She realized in that moment that she had been lying to herself for years, denying what her heart had known all along. Still, fear held her back. She pulled her hand free, stepping back with trembling breaths. "I need time," she whispered. "I can't answer you tonight. I don't even know how to put words to what I'm feeling." Daniel's face fell, but he nodded slowly. "I understand," he said, though his voice cracked under the weight of disappointment. He stepped back, giving her space, but the pain in his eyes was clear. Emma turned away, pressing her hands to her face as her tears flowed harder. She knew she had broken something fragile, something that could never be repaired. But she also knew the truth. Her silence had already said enough. The room felt unbearably heavy, every corner filled with words left unsaid. Emma's heart ached as she realized the truth she had been trying to avoid. Whatever decision she made, nothing would ever return to the way it was before. As Daniel stood quietly behind her, waiting, Emma whispered into the stillness, almost to herself, "God help me. I don't know how to stop feeling this." The night air felt heavier than usual, even though the windows were shut. Emma stood near the edge of the couch, her arms wrapped around herself as if trying to hold her body together. Daniel stood a few feet away, his chest rising and falling unevenly. Neither spoke. The silence between them was louder than any argument, filled with everything they had just admitted and everything they had left unsaid. Emma's mind raced. She knew the moment had already changed their lives. A truth once hidden had been spoken, and no matter how much she wanted to, she couldn't push it back into the shadows. She turned slightly, meeting Daniel's eyes again. They looked so much like his father's when he was younger, yet softer, more vulnerable. That vulnerability undid her. Daniel broke the silence first. His voice was low, trembling but steady enough to carry the weight of his words. "Mom, I don't need promises. I don't need answers tonight. I just needed you to hear me. But if there's even a part of you that feels what I feel, then maybe this doesn't have to be the end of us. Maybe it can be a beginning." Emma's throat tightened. She wanted to tell him to stop, to take it all back, but the words didn't come. Instead, she let out a shaky breath. "Daniel, this isn't a simple choice. It's not just about you and me. The world would never understand. People would judge, and the life we've built could fall apart." He stepped closer, his expression calm but determined. "I don't care what the world thinks. All I care about is us. I've lived long enough pretending to be normal, hiding the one truth that matters to me. I won't do it anymore." Emma's hands trembled. She turned her gaze away, staring at the faint glow of the television, the forgotten show, still playing scenes of other people's stories. How strange, she thought. That lives on a screen could feel so safe, while her own felt like it was balancing on a knife's edge. "Do you know what you're asking me to give up?" she whispered. Daniel's eyes softened. "I'm not asking you to give up anything. I'm asking you to choose me. Even if it's only here, in this house, behind these walls. Even if no one else ever knows. I just need to know I'm not alone in this." Emma turned back to him. His words hit her deeply, pulling at the very core of her. For years she had carried her life like a quiet burden, working, providing, pretending to be fine. But in truth, she had been lonely. She had missed being seen, missed being loved in ways deeper than duty. And now, her son, the one who had been her anchor through it all, was offering her something she had longed for but never thought possible. Connection that was raw, honest, and frighteningly real. Her tears fell silently. She stepped closer, without even realizing it, drawn to him as if some invisible thread had always tied them together. She reached out, her hand trembling as it brushed against his. The touch was light, hesitant, but it carried the weight of her decision. Daniel's breath caught. He looked down at their hands, then back at her face, searching for certainty. "So, does this mean you feel it too?" he asked softly. Emma's lips trembled as she spoke. "It means I can't keep lying to myself anymore. I don't know what will happen tomorrow or next week or years from now. But tonight, right now, I feel it. And that terrifies me." His shoulders relaxed, and for the first time his eyes filled with relief. He didn't move quickly, didn't rush her, but simply let her words sink between them like fragile truth. "That's all I needed to hear," he whispered. Emma closed her eyes, trying to steady her breathing, admitting it didn't solve anything. If anything, it made the road ahead more complicated. But it also brought a strange kind of peace, the kind that comes when secrets no longer weigh on.